Hola. Um, so I know the last live stream I said was going to be my last one for a while, and here it is, maybe a week later, and I'm already back. But that is because I am excited, uh, partly, and I wanted to thank everyone for the outpouring of support and help and kindness, and some of you guys contacted me directly and really made me realize that I serve a purpose in your lives, and it is meaningful to a lot of you, and infinitely rewarding for myself to have the honor of contributing to your lives. So thank you. First, I've been going for a round of tests tomorrow in Loja to see if we can't start getting me back on track. I felt a lot better the last couple of days. I'm not really sure why. Um, so that's good. And okay, so I have some ideas. I don't want to spend a lot of time because we still have to be somewhat conscious of data usage, and it's already late for me. But it's Jerry Garcia's birthday, so I'll probably play at least one Grateful Dead song because Jerry Garcia was probably, and the Grateful Dead are probably more important to me than any other single influence. Um, so rest in peace, Jerry Garcia. And actually, the Grateful Dead and jam bands in general are going to contribute kind of an antidote for what I'm going to talk about tonight. First conversation with a billionaire. Uh, this is not a conversation that I had directly with a billionaire, but it's something that a billionaire said to someone in a conversation. And it really struck me because I originally started studying Freemasonry and the occult, but Freemasonry in particular, as a way to empower myself because I knew that I had figured out that it was true that they were very powerful and influential. And it didn't take me very long to realize that what they were doing basically is ascertaining the laws and the machinations of the universe and incorporating a very profound knowledge of those things into their systems. For example, a really basic, almost clumsy example is the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. People talk about how the the pyramidal structure financially in our world is unnatural with the 1% at the top and the 99% at the bottom. But if you think about the fact that the pyramid is the most stable shape, uh, it, that is why you would structure your society that way. And I would also suggest that it's maybe not even something that really has to be consciously engineered, that systems are going to kind of conform to these, I don't know, these guiding foundational elements on their own. One of the things that this billionaire said in this conversation is that businesses left to their own devices without an unnatural influence would not make a profit because the tendency of all systems is to achieve homeostasis. Everything is moving towards homeostasis. And so it actually takes an unnatural force of will to compel a business into profit. Um, and there were a couple of things that he said, aside from that, that really reminded me of this sort of Masonic influence or occult influence in the way that we need to function. When I first started out on this mission, one of my objectives was to ascertain what the secret knowledge was, so that those of us on the outside could use it to build our organizations and businesses, and to sort of be an antidote to the current structure to sort of fight fire with fire. I think one of the really common and tragic misconceptions of occult knowledge and Freemasonry and all of that sort of thing is that it's somehow the knowledge itself that is evil, and that is just plain silly. In fact, I would even go so far as to suggest that the people that engineered the religions and the cultures, they put that propaganda in those systems for a reason, because it discourages people from discovering for themselves what this secret knowledge is and how it empowers people and how it works. And so, just listening to this billionaire talk, he hadn't done this intentionally. So it just was kind of like a reaffirmation that you look at somebody who has you know been very successful, and even intuitively they have incorporated an understanding of these esoteric principles into whatever it is that they're building. And so one of the things this guy said, and this is relevant to us, by the way, because I'm really trying to get organized now. I'm realizing that we do have a lot of potential, even just within my community, to exert some influence, to affect some changes. And in order to do that, we have to be organized, and we have to have a plan. And I'm really going to start putting more energy, especially I think as my health improves, it'll be easier to focus on this kind of thing, into actually organizing. And so one of the things this guy said is that you have like the owner or the CEO or whoever is really the conceptual, the idea person, and they are like the one. So in esoteric terms, we would think of them as the one mind or the deity. In music, you could think of it as the tonic, the home key. So we're in the key of A. And in music, there are 3 fundamental notes that make up a chord. Also, in just about every religion, you have the triad. And so he was talking about this same concept in business and saying that you need 3 superstars: somebody in charge of acquisition, somebody in charge of delivery, and somebody in charge of operations. And so it just occurred to me that he's doing what I've always intended to do with this knowledge, which is incorporate it into the structure of the things that I do. And so he was talking about this, businesses achieving homeostasis unless there's an unnatural force of will, and then the structure of like an influence that isn't an influence, because he was saying that what you really want in an organization is for the CEO or the owner or the person that has created it to not really have to be directly involved, or so that you can have these 3, so you can have your triad sort of dealing with everything, which is exactly how it works in music or in the triad concept of all of these religions. And so that is all interesting and good. And so I'm going to start, the bullet point of this presentation is that I'm going to start actually interacting, I think, more with the Discord that I set up. I've stopped putting the link in here. I haven't been in there in a few weeks. But I really want to start, I'm kind of aware of some of the people in this community, their strengths and talents, and people have offered to contribute like websites and different skills. But I really want to put a lot more energy into that and try to organize a little better. And one of the ways that we can do that, one of the things that we need is funding. And so recently I have discovered that with the cryptocurrency shitcoin market, you have a huge number of launches happening all the time. There's like 300 coins a day or something stupid like that being introduced into the market. So we have this insane saturation. And then we have a very high incidence of scams and rug pulls and honeypots. We have been deeply affected by all of that. But I had the idea that we could organize a group of people to, like everyone tries to get in the whitelist because you have, 250 people will be given a chance to get an entry into the whitelist, which is the pre-launch price. And so if there is a large group of people all coordinating to get onto the whitelist, and then the same group of people has agreed to divvy up the contribution amount. So say the maximum contribution is 2 BNB, then you can divide it amongst this group of people. And if you have like 12 people, 1 or 2 of them are guaranteed more or less to get on any whitelist. So this is another thing that I'm really trying to organize, is sort of like a raid group to get into some of these shitcoin launches, because then you can minimize risk, maximize profit, and it's extremely difficult to get into them. But if you have a group of people working together to get access, and then to share the investment and the profit, and the profit can be completely insane. I've personally put $170 worth of BNB into a token, and 72 hours later it's $3,700 or something. So, and I've never gotten into a whitelist, a pre-launch. So, as my health improves and I'm realizing the potential, and that we do have, I have this understanding of this sort of esoteric, but not. I mean, esoteric actually means that there is a select group of people that understand the knowledge. It actually doesn't necessarily mean that it's like of a metaphysical nature. So I feel like what we need to do is come up with like a core group of people, organize them, and that the path is made plain, that cryptocurrency is the way to fund it, and collaboration is the way to make things happen. Oh yeah, and another really powerful lesson that I learned from looking at various cryptocurrencies over the last couple of weeks is that a lot of them have started to integrate their ecosystems. So for example, you have a currency like thorium that is giving, so you stake in thorium, say for 90 days. The longer you stake, the better your interest rate is. And then it gives you reflection rewards in like Safe Moon, and then Safe Earn, which also reflects in Safe Moon. So if thorium can convince people to stake with them, it increases the stability of the currency, and then these tokens that are integrated have incentive to provide support, because the sort of like auxiliary. Oh, there's no audio? Oh, that's why everyone's tuning out. Why the hell would there be no audio? Why the hell would there be no audio? Oh no, it is just you. There's definitely audio. Okay. So anyways, like that, it's just another element of like this structuring of organizations in this way that is symbiotic. And part of what was so powerful about the lesson of realizing that these cryptocurrencies have figured out this way to integrate with each other in a way that creates stability, because one of the biggest problems they have is that people dump the currencies all the time. So the price skyrockets and then it drops. And it's very difficult to provide incentive for people to hold the token. So when they came up with the idea of integrating these various currencies and then creating vaults with extremely high interest rates in order to keep people locked in for 90 days. And once you lock your currency up, if you take it out before 90 days is over, the penalty is 90%. Nobody's going anywhere. So the main point, though, is that it's a very different way of doing business. And I really do think that we are moving into an entirely new paradigm. And that example that I just gave of how, rather than cutthroat competition as the the foundational, the philosophical disposition of business, there's this synergistic, um, symbiotic approach of integrating the success of various platforms, so that they can act in unison and build each other up. And fundamentally, these are still competing platforms. They're businesses that are owned by different people, but they have found a way to integrate and support each other. And so that kind of mentality is what we need to create a new level of success. Success will be our proof, right? So we're trying to get rid of the vicious old paradigm, and the only way that we're going to sway people is by creating an example that integrates our philosophical ideas but is transcendent over the structures and the approach of the old paradigm or the old aeon. Um, on a metaphysical level, I was thinking about this today when I was in town about how, um, the fundamental influences in the universe are these antinomies. These, I just discovered that Maynard James Keenan from Tool named his biography something that references this interplay of perfect complementary. He phrased it really well. I can't remember, but these opposites interacting, and how what's happening over time is that they're being drawn together. The mystics and philosophers are always talking about how love is this fundamental force in the universe, and I feel like they're describing this that which draws together and binds. Not necessarily the human love that people like to think that they're referencing. And so, I realized that just as Aleister Crowley, who I owe an apology from the last live stream I did, we'll get to that in a second, he was talking about how we would become more epicent and bisexual in the new aeon. And I realized that as these opposites are drawing together, they are going to merge. And it's a fundamental law of creation that there is always chaos that precedes a new order. And so the imbalances, the disharmony, the friction that we're experiencing as we move into this new order are a unavoidable part of this process of, people, you can call it a number of things: birth pains, and the allusion to the jam band. I know a lot of you guys just tuned in. In music, the fundamental mechanism is tension and release, and you could also call that, disharmony, and then homeostasis. Where the tendency of these systems is to come into homeostasis, right? And so in music, you have tension tones and then you have resolution tones. And I think in periodicities in history, you have the same kind of fundamental mechanism, that really there are only this one set of basic fundamental universal laws. And so you can see these mechanisms at work in all systems that you observe. So, I was talking about the triad in music and the triad in business and the triad in the occult, or all the various religions, and how there's this like universality to these, because they're, based on a fundamental structure that is reflected and repeated in everything. And so before I forget the apology that I had for Aleister Crowley, last week or the week before, whenever I was doing the Book of Lies, I came to a passage where he said that men or people are actually saying that women are superior to men, and that all men are created equal, and this is clearly ridiculous. And I kind of blushed and said, yeah, it was Victorian England. He said some regrettable things. There was nothing regrettable about that. It's absolutely true. And I just thought it was interesting to notice that I had this reaction, because it's like, it's like a cultural. But it's not true. Women aren't superior to men. If anything, it's equality. There's no, and then of course all men are not equal. the hero, genius, artist uh, is not equal to the child murdering, uh, mentally disabled. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. They should have equal rights, people, but of course, not all men are equal. So it's just interesting to realize after the fact that I had sort of like apologized for this idea that actually is not even offensive. Um, Pretty uncharacteristic of me, anyways, I think. So, okay, so where were we going with that, though? It was okay. So, this when people talk about, like Crowley would talk about the formula of the new aeon, and he would talk about developments in history and culture as if they were um, elements or chemicals in a petri dish that were reacting and recombining. And um, a lot of people, I think, if you don't understand that, when someone talks about the formula of a period, um, there's a tendency to kind of roll your eyes, but it's actually exactly true. And if you understand the influences that are coming to bear on a system, you can see how it is that, for example, Aleister Crowley was so able to make accurate predictions regarding, how developments in the future, just based on his understanding of universal law. And so the prediction, for example, in the book of the law, that people would become more bisexual and that androgyny would become more common. He considered himself to be very androgynous. He kind of had breasts even when he wasn't overweight. And so it's this binding it's like the beginning of, after the singularity, there was this tremendous force that compelled the one to disintegrate, sort of, to break up into the 10,000 things, as the Buddhists called it, or, for the one to become the many. And then the rest of history, after we have reached the point of maximum expansion, is a point of contraction. Systole and diastole are the only things that are happening in the universe at large. And so I think that we're in this period of contraction where the multiplicity is becoming union again. And that is why we see the resolution of sex, where people are becoming really neither one or the other, because all of these antinomies are being drawn together and combined. So that's what I think about that. How are you guys doing? Who is out there? It's funny, sometimes this happens. I had so much on my mind, and it was all flowing so beautifully. And then by the time I get on here, I'm kind of, maybe I should have, it's too late, I'm too tired. But anyways, mostly I just wanted to kind of touch base and say, thank you guys for being so supportive, because we certainly would not make it without that. And tomorrow I'm going to get tests, and hopefully we will get some good answers and